Well, welcome. Tonight, busy night for the Conservative View. Topics on local, state, and national that are really interesting and could have Uncle Ed wound up tonight.
No, not at
Why
all.
don't we start with an introduction?
Christopher Wilson, school committee member, planning board member.
Ed Bertarelli, library trustee, geriatric authority member, and member of the housing authority.
Well, why don't you give us a 30-second,
Well, I just wanted to say, we're filming at the time in early November. The Central Street Bridge has just opened. A little late, but it looks very, very nice to go over and to ease traffic. We also have a really tragic loss in the Turtle Tavern, which is a building apparently from 125 years old, and housed the Turtle Tavern, obviously, but before that held the Townhouse Lounge, and I believe a hotel before then burned, and I believe was torn down today, a Main Street landmark. I've heard stories that they may attempt to rebuild. It's certainly going to be an issue with the modern codes and everything, but anyway, we wish them luck, because Jim and Heidi Turtelot were owners of that place for many decades, and were involved in the Milford community and sponsored a lot of charitable events and everything else. So that's where we are as far as in Milford.
And my hat's off to Chief Mark and his crew, because when you see the flames coming out of the Turtle Tavern building, how it didn't take 3 or 4 buildings around
Yes.
it
Yes.
amazed me.
Yeah, the wind, I guess the wind, and the other thing was that some Milford fire apparatus responded to an accident on 495. And if you realize if the accident's up around the Hopkitten area, it's a long ride up there, so that's when Hopkitten
Well, they had
ladder,
mutual aid.
yeah, Hopkitten ladder crew came in, and talk about a scary operation. Literally, the ladder was poised right over the fire, pouring water down. Talk about a man or woman up in that ladder. Yeah,
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I had the opportunity
yeah.
to go down, or took the opportunity to go down with my son when we heard. So,
Yeah.
just to kind of see the situation, and
Yeah.
certainly there was a lot of mutual aid,
Yeah.
a lot of firefighters that were extremely busy, and certainly, it's
Yeah.
surrounded by numerous buildings.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the evening time, so there's some wind. Embers could have
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah.
Town
Yeah.
Hall.
Yeah.
The smoke was going right towards Town Hall. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly the firefighters that responded did a great job,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Chief Nelson especially
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
to coordinate all those efforts.
Yeah.
And as you said, there was already some units that were responding to
Yeah.
another incident. So
Yeah, and then people call people like what's the Italian tailor shop there?
Spallone's.
Spallone's.
Yeah.
Sorry, Spallone's, and asked if there was any water damage because people were very concerned. But
Yes.
they said they were fine, and so everyone was concerned about that. I'm sure Restaurant 89's right across the street, again, below ground, so you wonder about all that stuff because.
You know, you got
the effects of
apartments
it.
all over the place
Apartments
there.
all over, yeah.
Yes. Yep,
So hats off to our
yep,
firefighters.
yep.
Hats off to
Because
them.
you talk about them being in a precarious position over the fire on a ladder.
Mm.
I think the biggest danger is just being the people running towards the fire.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you look at the cancer rates that the firefighters
Oh, there's-
have, they're
Yeah,
so
there was
much
a big-
higher.
There was a fundraiser a few years ago for my friend Teddy DiPaolo, and
Yeah.
who's since passed, and another fireman, and a woman came in from the Boston area and talked about the awful phenomenal rates of different cancers
Yeah.
among fire first responders.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're seeing that
Yeah.
with our own Milford
Yeah.
retired firefighting staff.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Well, we bought special wash machines for their clothing.
Yeah,
I mean, we're doing what you can, but
Correct.
yeah. but
when
they-
you're in the middle of a carcinogen parade,
yeah,
you know, with
yeah,
the burn.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that I didn't talk about it before the show, but the other thing is that ICE has been very active in Milford, and I know I formerly lived on top of Water Street. One of my tenants called me one day, and there was an apprehension right in the front yard. So they've been very active in the town, and a number of people have been apprehended. And I guess what they do is, they get an ankle bracelet, and after a certain period, they're deported. I guess most of them never made their hearing or whatever that was going to be. That when Biden was in, he was supposed to given a date or something to have a hearing, and none of them ever went. So I guess the deportations will
Well,
continue.
talk about ICE.
Mhm.
There's a lot of controversy about whether the ICE members should be protected. You know, why are they wearing masks? Why, and that you see that there's politicians even talking about go after the ICE.
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah, they've
Well-
become a target.
Well, I know from talking to law enforcement people that a number of them have masks on because they've been borrowed from other agencies.
Correct.
So a number of them are undercover with Hell's Angels, with other groups. Imagine that job.
No, no.
Being, I mean, a horror job, and if your face was shown somewhere and taken by one of these loonies who's going to put it on the thing and hey, anyone know him, and the next thing you know, your family's being, whatever.
Well, I mean, with the facial recognition software.
Yes.
It's not very onerous to identify somebody if you have a picture of them.
No.
Correct, exactly. And I think that we're seeing, good and bad of social media where
Yeah.
everybody has some type of recording device, right? So when an apprehension happens or a detention
Yeah.
happens, there are numerous people coming out with, recording those individuals, those ICE agents apprehending somebody. And there's a lot of yelling and screaming, and there's a lot of negativity
Emotional,
going
yeah,
in a very, it gets
Yeah.
a very
The thing I
emotional,
don't
hyped
understand
up.
is
So,
if we want to hold the ICE officers accountable, they can be in black zoot suits for all I care. Put a badge with a number on it.
Yeah, which
Number
is private though.
123,
Yeah.
and that's top secret, clearance only,
Yeah. You mean access to those names? Yeah.
access to the names.
Yeah.
So that if
Yeah.
Officer 331 was excessive in his force, you got a camera, you got his badge number, and put a process in that protects them.
Yeah, I think part of it too is we saw a blowback with that, with the Marcello incident in Milford, and that, of course, the local media love to, and the Boston media love to portray it. The irony is, when Marcello was up in Burlington at the facility, Seth Moulton, who's the congressman from there, was up there grandstanding in front. Of course, our own congressman, Alconclaws, was up there too and couldn't get 2 cents in because the other guy had out grandstanded him. But someone said to me something that who's a Brazilian who was has dual citizenship. It said, "Well, Ed, you know where Marcelo lived, which I won't get into the area, but he goes, and I knew it's where he lived. He said, if you just go a quarter mile or half mile down the road to Water Street, you're going to find 300 or 400 people who never even applied for a visa, who never applied for anything. So you're going, what does a family do when they've gone through some of the ropes and they're looking at other people who've gone through none of the ropes and everything's the same? So, I mean, Biden created an immense problem. It's costing a lot of money to try and solve it, but whatever possessed him to throw open the border and give hundreds of millions of dollars in things to fly people all over the country is beyond me, because they were settled in places that were very not even close to the climates and the things they grew up in.
again, I think going back to where you're protecting your ICE agents, you look at what happened in Texas, right, where someone took some shots at the ICE
Yep.
agents there too. You look at the unrest that's happening in Portland,
Exactly.
right? And just these ICE agents, they're trying to keep people back so their own agents can move in and out, and you have a lot of very unruly crowds,
Yeah.
right? Can you imagine even living in that neighborhood and the amount of just chaos that's happening there on a day-to-day basis, where you're just a normal citizen just trying to go about your business, but you have all, hundreds, maybe thousands of individuals that are just trying to create a situation of unrest, right? And they're trying to go after these ICE agents. So again, I'm okay with them protecting their identification. I understand where you're coming from maybe some type of identification number, but the departments know who's out there, right? And which officers are out there.
Yeah.
So they're gonna know who's who
Yeah.
based on if someone posts something on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah,
So
Alec,
again,
a
I'm
question-
supportive of them
Yeah,
100%.
a good question to ask the media is, since I know from, again, talking to law enforcement, that a substantial percentage of the people who have been apprehended are wanted for serious crimes in their countries, why isn't the media reporting that instead of one incident, which is a tragic one, like the Marcello one in Milford, or a few others, and ignoring the rest? Because like again with the media, it's a distorted picture of reality, because that's a simple thing. The simple fact is, and whether the rapists, the murderers, the wife beaters, people for armed robbery and everything else from these countries, and were allowed in, and now they're being evicted. But the point is that the media, the public should know that.
All right, and
Well,
I get
I
it.
don't understand.
You know what I mean? I think-
where
Yeah.
a citizen gets off thinking they can attack any type of law enforcement officer.
Right.
Whether it's ICE, whether it's local police, whether it's FBI.
Well, tragically, I think a lot of people think they're righteous in doing it.
Right.
That's scary.
Well, again,
You know what I
but
mean?
the whole narrative has changed, right? If you go back, you start with Clinton, right? Then Obama, and even when Hillary Clinton ran, right? There are sound bites for all of them when they had held any type of
Yeah.
office. We're saying, we're a nation of immigrants, a nation of laws. You have to get in line. So now, when Biden, it was just open the floodgates. So something happened in the narrative where we're not allowing people in unless it's the lawful
Yeah.
way, to now, well, we have 10 million plus people in, so I guess it's okay. And they've created a life,
Yep.
or and they
Yep.
have families. Well, I understand that, but still, look at the kind of the chaos that it has created.
And the benefits.
And there's no doubt about that the immigration process needs a complete overhaul. But until then, we still
Yeah.
have to follow
Yeah.
the
Well,
rules that we have.
I think the problem is nobody will step up and say, we need a certain amount of these immigrants.
Yeah, no one wants to solve the problem.
Okay, and like I said, I invite you into my house. If you start breaking my furniture, you got no rights. I get to throw you out of my house.
Well,
Right.
a lot of
Yeah.
people don't think that. That's unfortunately the problem.
You know,
Right,
I have
exactly. The
empathy for
narrative
the
changed.
immigrants that come to this country because they want to do better for their family. They put their head down, they go to work, they pay their taxes, they go by the laws. Yes, they've broken a law of coming into the country without papers, but they're not doing any harm.
No, but the thing is today though, unlike the periods you're talking about, is today you're offered a panoply of benefits.
Yeah.
And so it isn't. You're contributing to the economy, but in many cases you're also costing millions and millions of dollars because in states like Massachusetts you can't even ask if someone's a citizen.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, and so, you have to wonder, so the 3 million people that Obama deported in 8 years, no one talked about that in the media.
Correct.
The 800,000 apparently that Clinton did in his term. So you're going, well, wait a minute, it was all right to deport them then.
Right.
But it's not all right now. And then you had the other types of, well, we can't let certain people in the country, we can let other people in the country, and they're just talking about the number of what it's called. There's a list of so many Australians are allowed in so
The
many
quotas.
Quotas, yeah.
Now they're not representative anymore of the real world because they talked about Ireland's one of our biggest trading partners. I just saw this in the paper. I mean, really amazing to think about the hundreds of companies that are there, and there's a real demand of qualified Irish workers to come over, but their quota is so low, they're thinking of letting the Irish use part of the Australian quota, which is not used at all, but how rigorous it was.
Well, I mean, that's how, if I think back to the Portuguese. There's a lot of Portuguese in Toronto.
Yes.
Why? Because the quota got filled to the U.S., and the closest country to the U.S. was Canada.
Sure.
So if you couldn't get into the U.S., you went to Canada.
Yeah. When one of my relatives was a pastry chef in Italy, and he was recruited to go to the Chateau Frontenac in Quebec, the big hotel there, and he was also debating of coming to the United States because my grandmother was his close relative, and but he decided on Canada. But then he decided he didn't like the idea of having to learn French, so he moved to the Chateau Laureate, which is in Ottawa. But when he came over, he was a landed immigrant in Canada, which meant he had to have a sponsor.
Yep.
But obviously, he already had a career because they recruited him to be a pastry chef. So he had a job and everything guaranteed. But he came down to visit my grandmother in the 50s, and she passed away, I think, 7 months later, and he couldn't come down again because he was only allowed one trip out of the country for a certain number of time. Mm-hmm. So it was a welcoming, just like there were millions of Ukrainians up in Canada because of the farming thing. They moved right to the western part of Canada. Yep.
I was going to say, you start looking at the immigrants coming in.
Yep.
Biden opened the gates and anybody could come in.
Mhm.
You know, it was just totally out of control.
Everything, yeah, it's amazing.
And it was, you can't stop it.
And what about the cartels who made a lot of
And
money?
then
And
all of a sudden,
a new
Yeah.
administrator.
a new administration
stopped.
comes in and it stopped.
Yep, exactly.
It shows you how
And-
easy it was
and
to do.
stopped, and now is at record lows.
Yeah.
They haven't seen
It's
lows
zero.
since-
Yeah, imagine what the
basically
cartels were
50 years.
making.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Smuggling people. That was a
Exactly.
scary thing.
Yeah.
Because the towns along the southern border, they were finding dead people in the imagine the trauma of
Exactly.
going out
Well,
and
it was
finding
like
people.
when we
the
voted
streets.
to make
Yeah,
marijuana
yeah.
legal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same in my mind as when we voted to make the lotteries legal. Think of the money you took out of the bookies in organized crime's hand when all of a sudden.
There's other ways there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but at least you could take it. Same with marijuana.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it's being regulated, taxed.
Yeah, but now it's just so expensive that those shops are closing, and
Right.
the other industry, the underground one, is thriving.
Well, it became a
Because
saturated
in
market.
Massachusetts, a classic example of how not to do it. They over-licensed, and then what they did was, they were going to do the mom and pop shops. They talked in Boston about getting ethnically diverse, black and Asian owned shops or whatever. And now you're finding the giant conglomerates who are owned, like the Milford plant was bought up by a Canadian giant, the pot place in Milford, a Canadian mega giant of a company. I mean, their investors are like the who's who of investors in the world. So the big superpowers in the pot industry are taking back control of it. So
But I believe
very
one of those
interesting.
plants has either shut down or has minimized their operation
Over here,
too,
yeah, that's right,
in
yeah,
Milford.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
as far as the grow facility,
yeah.
to my understanding. So
The
yeah.
one, was
So
on
again, it's a saturated
Industrial
market.
Boulevard or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. But so
But you were going on about the coverage. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
the first time that ice hit Milford, one of the first public times.
Mhm.
I went to Robbie, our police chief,
Mm.
and I said, look, we're hearing rumblings that a lot of the Hispanic parishioners aren't coming to church because they're worried that ice is hanging around the
Yeah,
churches.
yeah,
And Robbie told me, no, the first raid, he was there. And ICE had warrants
Yeah.
Mhm.
for
Exactly.
specific people.
Mhm.
He said they didn't care about if you just came over the border.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I think it's a little different.
Okay.
They're
That to me made
Poignant.
sense. I mean, they
Well-
caught one guy who was from Brazil, wanted in Brazil. He was a drug trafficker, a people trafficker.
Mhm.
You know, why do we want that person in Milford?
Yeah, but again, remember now, you just said Spanish, so there's two different groups here, and the Brazilian community's really been hit by ICE. I'm sure the Hispanic, or the Ecuadorian one has too, but the Brazilian, because of this, so in the trades, it's easy to target them, because I know we've had things in different town departments where some of the workers are hesitant to come to work
Right.
and get stuff done because they're worried. And I know a lady down the Cape, she's actually a citizen, but she carries her papers with her in the car just in case or whatever. Just
in case, yeah. Yeah.
But she's very happy with the crackdown because she went through the hard process. And, it would be nice if the government could clean its act up to also get the immigration process where when you actually applied, they treated you with respect.
Exactly.
And got you through the process, because you're paying a lot of money to do this. And if you go in, sometimes you have immigration lawyers who are not even, they're scamsters, to put it bluntly. And so they're preying on the people who want to do the legal thing, and that's not fair.
But I
It makes
didn't-
you mad.
The voting bloc, New Jersey, Virginia, just went through
Yeah.
a major change.
Well,
I never heard the immigration be the major issue in that.
it wasn't. It isn't. It's the economy.
I kept hearing economy.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's
course.
always been the economy. That's what defeated Biden. And it could defeat Trump if he doesn't explain it to the people in a clear way. But Biden was sunk by the economy and by Kamala, who said she would do nothing different.
Yeah.
So when she said that,
Well, but come on, Ed. She came out and said, I am not Joe Biden. I'll be my own person.
but then she said she
But
wouldn't do
then-
anything.
And they
she
said,
wouldn't
well,
change
what
the-
would you do differently?
different,
I wouldn't do
exactly.
anything
Well, that's on
different.
The View too. I mean, you can't get a better softball questions from
that.
I mean, it'd be like
group.
it's asking Joe
Yeah.
Biden what his favorite flavor of ice cream was. I mean,
Exactly.
Are you surprised that New York elected a socialist?
No, the I having lived there for 14 years, I started to look at the breakdown of the voting pattern. And New York has now got 8 million people. It always was 7. So in that process, there's been 1 million. Now, some people from other parts of the United States go there, and obviously some people from New York go to Florida or go everywhere else. But they said that his win was predominantly among the young voters.
Exactly.
Who didn't know about 9/11 or knew a lot, didn't whatever. And so the older the voter, the more likely they would vote for Cuomo. But of course, Cuomo's a very damaged candidate
Oh, yeah,
too,
exactly,
because
yeah.
the way he ran for governor, the COVID things,
Well,
or whatever.
Adams was damaged. Cuomo was damaged,
Yeah, so
right?
they held their
yeah.
nose and voted for Cuomo because he wasn't Mondami. But obviously, I mean, I look at Mondami as it's the biggest, it's the most hypocritical candidate I've ever seen. He called people colonists. His own background, his parents were colonists in Uganda,
Right.
who were very privileged. They came here. He promptly went to elite prep schools and graduated from
Yeah, but
Bowdoin.
he talks about his
yeah.
grassroots.
Yeah, but he
Right,
went to
yeah.
no, but he went to elite prep schools in Bowdoin. So he literally is the elite, the Michelle Obama type who went to Princeton but was not proud of the country. The same way he graduates from these schools, comes back and never had a job till he got to New York State
Well-
Assembly.
I was going to say his first job.
Was it a band or?
Well, no, but
He
it
was-
was
yeah.
assemblyman.
He wasn't something. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Self-proclaimed
Like Bernie Sanders
musician
in a way,
and
yeah.
all that. So yeah,
And of course, so then he gets in. Now he's talking about he wants everyone like who has a rent stabilized apartment just like him not to get
rent stabilization,
Yeah.
free childcare,
Yeah.
free bus service. You
Well,
know, I mean,
now rent
they're-
stabilization.
I
and
can
tax the
see
rich to do this.
If you
right?
come to me and say, I'm going to give you all this stuff for free, and it's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah, well, they're right.
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean,
especially if you're young, just starting out and living in New York City, where the prices are
It's like-
exorbitant.
they're like Boston.
Right? Exactly. So why would you not feed into that?
but it
but-
brings back memories of Maggie Thatcher
Well,
when she said socialism is the best
Yeah, but-
form of government until you run out of other
yeah, but they're
people's
not.
money.
They're not.
Exactly.
But again, the level of discussion among these voters is so primitive as to what they want, like free grocery stores and whatever else.
Yeah.
I mean, rent stabilization. My apartment in New York was rent stabilized. What that meant was, every year, the rent stabilization board would announce for a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year lease.
Yeah, and we're going to allow you to raise your rent 3%.
Well, no, but it varied. So in
Yeah.
other words, for 1 year lease, it could be 3%, but that was again, so 3, 3, and 3. A 3 year lease might have been 4%, so you just paid that amount. So it was a way to keep apartments affordable. It wasn't rent control, which was ridiculously low. So they'd come in and look at an apartment, and there were probably 2 million people on rent stabilization. So very, very powerful.
But
group.
does it work?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
I disagree because,
Yeah.
it works at keeping it low, but there was
No,
also
but
a
I'm just
story
saying-
about
Yeah.
The problem, sorry to interrupt, but the problem in my mind is there's not enough affordable housing.
in New
So
York
why-
City or in general.
Anywhere.
In Boston,
Anyways, right? Yeah.
New York.
Right.
I mean, I look at my daughter's apartment at $5,500 a
Yeah,
month.
but that's the North End where they've changed it to a rip-off neighborhood from the Italian
But still-
neighborhood. They're
But-
taking advantage of yuppies.
Yeah.
That's what
but
they're
yeah,
doing.
but if people are willing to
Yeah.
pay that,
Yeah.
then the
But now
it will
you turn
continue
around
to
and
go
say,
up.
if I'm going to invest my money, I'm an investor. Why would I invest it into an area that's rent controlled that limits?
Yeah, but again, what I was saying was rent control was a thing for only apartments. We're getting too much. No one really cares about New York. But rent control only applied to a certain apartments right after World War II. And if you were grandfathered in with the same
Right.
family and then they
Yeah.
died off, rent stabilization was a totally different item. But anyway, to get back to Mondami, I think he had his ideas had appeal. You look in the ethnic profile of the voting, he got his main strength from Brooklyn, okay? He lost Staten Island. It was close in Queens, but Brooklyn, which is a very
But
leftist.
you wouldn't expect him to take Staten Island.
Well, no, it's all
Right.
policemen and firemen. But anyway, it's a small borough. But I think the Republican talking point ought to be that now you have the mayor of New York is this guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think interesting, right? he hasn't even taken office. It's the first day after, and the
police.
fire commissioner, who is Jewish,
Yeah.
has already resigned.
Yeah.
Right. So
You imagine
will
who's going
there
to replace him with.
right? Will that be a domino effect? Right.
Yeah, but again,
and,
he's gonna
and
replace
even
them
as
with-
mayor, how he's the executor of policy, so he still has to create all of these policies from the socialist agenda, right? And he's even said,
Well, the city council
He's-
is just as bad.
well, yeah, but he's even said that he doesn't believe in capitalism. Well, New York City is the hub of capitalism, right? So how
Tell
is
that
that
to Wall
going?
Street.
Right? How is that going to work?
Well,
right?
again,
You know-
how are you going to pay? When I hear I'm going to give you free busing,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
well, let's
The
see.
rich.
We've struggled with the MBTA to fund it properly. If we
The
wanted to make,
millionaire's tax is used now.
Right.
In Massachusetts, that's what
Right.
funds the MBTA. In Boston, the millionaire's tax. That's
Yeah.
because there's so many $1 billion there.
Yeah.
They siphon off. They've decided they're going to take a percentage of it and fund the free bus
but I
service
thought
and
that
everything.
millionaire's tax was supposed to be used for schools and
Oh,
roads.
but stop it! Come on, Al.
Wasn't that what they sold it on?
Yeah. Oh,
Probably,
come on.
yeah.
Wait,
And then all of a
not.
sudden I find out,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but we need
Yeah.
some for MBTA.
MBTA is more
Yeah.
important right
But
now,
I-
right?
but
It's
I
in
think
more
I
dire
think-
straits.
I think the Republican talking point in all this should be, so now you've got Mondami, whatever happens, and you have, living in Brooklyn, a mile and a half from one another, a Chuck Schumer
Schumer.
and Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
So basically you show the rest of America, maybe California might like this idea, but I don't know whether else would. So here you have this mayor, and you have, so you want Brooklyn, New York, basically, maybe Bernie Sanders might like it, but you have Brooklyn, New York running the United States if you give the Democrats the House and the Senate.
Right. Yeah.
So how representative of two people out of New York City, from the left wing, most left wing part of New York City, they're gonna run the country. Okay, tell me another one, because what's his name's from Louisiana, the Republican.
Yeah,
and,
Johnson.
And Thune's from South Dakota. So, I mean, that's America, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, and
but
obviously
Brooklyn, New
it-
York ain't, what do you call it?
It goes right.
Well,
it's
when
a
you
hand
talk
with
about
a
day
shutdown.
one,
Yeah.
Mondavi's first speech,
Oh, God.
Yep.
didn't he get supported nicely by Uncle Bernie?
Oh,
Of
right away.
course.
I mean,
Yeah.
Bernie got
Wow.
up there and started complaining how he was the one that ran against the Democratic
Oh, yeah, Waste
establishment.
Mafia has been.
Right.
Yeah, but you have to listen
Right,
to
yeah.
this guy, and he could sell, Mondavi, whatever his name is, could sell ice cream to the Eskimos.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, I think
he's
he's-
very, very, I mean,
Yeah,
he has an
he's a
elite
fresh face.
education.
Yeah.
He is the exemplar of privilege.
Yep.
That's the point. When he talks about colonists, his family were colonists in Africa. You know, why did they move to Uganda from where they're
Can we
from?
tell it's
from, yeah.
Halloween when Uncle Ed's talking about white privilege?
Well, I haven't talked about white privilege yet, but we can talk about that. But again, I think there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who, what do you want to call it? Remember, you could only vote, it's a choice it was a choice between three here. But you had a disgraced former mayor, Adams.
No, but Curtis Schlewer was not a realistic
No,
candidate.
but he had.
But he siphoned off a
No,
lot
but
of
he had
votes.
enough credibility because when he had the guardian angels, when the city was real bad, he protected people. He was injured, he was shot, and whatever
But he didn't
else.
have that same charisma as Mondani.
No, I'm not saying that, but you have Governor Cuomo who was deeply damaged.
Right.
I mean, the COVID deaths,
Yep.
the fact that he made, $4 million from a book talking about, and then he lied about making the money, about how he saved people from COVID.
How he treated his staff.
when he
how
did-
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Again,
I mean, to me,
he
that
was
alone,
deeply-
anybody
deeply,
that has a mother,
scarred.
a wife, a daughter,
Yeah.
I can't see how you support
You
somebody
remember
like Cuomo.
Janice Dean, who was the weather person for Fox, she lost her mother and father-in-law in the New York fiasco with those homes. So she led a campaign to reveal and demand the revelation of the whole thing about
yeah.
the money he got. And remember when Trump sent the hospital ship up to try and help
Yeah.
him, and he wouldn't put a
He
person in it.
Right. Yeah. He completely mismanaged it.
Yeah, and
no doubt.
I mean,
But Mondavi
Yeah.
has a charisma.
Right.
so again, you
And
have
I
a
think
choice
now,
in election.
Now that, I mean, you had Schlewer, which is like, nice guy, but not a prayer.
Well,
yeah.
Cuomo, who's an embarrassment.
Right. And,
Has been.
and Mondani, that, like you said, has he can sell it to that younger generation.
And he was
that's
very well
really
positioned.
looking
And
to
he's
try to
reaching
find
right
a step
back.
ahead.
I mean, I love the fact that Uncle Bernie from Vermont complains about these millionaires
Yeah.
and how they're not paying their fair share. And then
Yeah.
you sit there and say, how much are you worth?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
well, Bernie's,
How many houses
Bernie's
do you have? You're
Bernie's
in
a
Vermont.
Brooklyn guy. And
it's-
I mean, anyone who honeymoons in the Soviet Union, and when it was the Soviet Union, it's got to be nuts. But Bernie did. So
Wow, that's great.
But I mean,
Well, I think that and going back to this whole socialist, in a sense, experiment or change in New York, according to the experts, it'll be interesting to see because it's always imploded. Socialism has always imploded. You
Well,
look at
it's-
Venezuela, right? Perfect example.
well, just
So-
pick one socialist country that's
Right.
worked.
Exactly.
Soviet Union, not so fast.
Right.
Cuba,
you could say
not so.
you could say the
Venezuela,
Scandinavian countries are socialist and they work, but they're a different kind of socialism.
but you could claim
There's
that
no-
part of the United States is
No,
socialist
no,
because
but
we
no,
have
but
Medicare,
Scandinavia's no. What I meant by
Medicaid.
no, but
Yeah.
what I meant was that in Scandinavia and in a lot of countries in Europe,
Yeah.
you have health care funded through high taxation, like Canada, and it's done whatever. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
much more what do you call it. But the
Well,
fact is that this guy, remember, everything's timing.
I got to
you could
tell
only
you,
run
Ed,
against your.
I
you could only
thought
run- yeah.
when we lived in Paris for 4 years, I thought the French socialized medicine scheme was the best thing going because we were under American Blue Cross.
Mhm.
So my wife's girlfriends would take 3 months to get an appointment.
Yeah.
Since Sharon was paying cash for health care,
Yeah.
she got it in within no
Immediately.
time at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So for us, it
Well,
was
that's-
great.
That's what happens in
Right.
England, where they have, where if you're smart and you have the money, you don't go to the National Health Service.
Right.
You go to hospitals and doctors.
You go to private
will
care.
work around it, yes.
And that's what we were doing while we lived in France.
Yeah.
Sharon needed an appointment, she got in immediately. There was no question. Used to drive her friend Stella nuts because
Well, hey,
for the same thing, Stella had to wait 90 days.
And again, there's so many issues with the current government, right? We talk about like just the problems with immigration, right, and the revamp that it needs. So now all of a sudden you want to create like a system where the government runs the healthcare system.
Well-
I think that is again when you
this
go
is-
down that
Yeah,
socialist
but this is
avenue. I think it's a
but this is
disaster.
Segue into a question we should bring up now is that part of the government shutdown was that the Democrats wanted subsidies for the Affordable Care Act,
Right.
which was under Obama. And Ezekiel Emanuel was on CNN. He was the founder of Obamacare, Rahm Emanuel's brother. And he basically admitted that when they did it, they crafted these subsidies to terminate this year. So when was Obamacare put in? '08 maybe? Or-
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that.
What do you think? Maybe, well, when was he president from?
Well, it doesn't matter.
So just say '08, for what, 15 years or whatever, and then they were supposed to, what, die? So you know what he wanted was, once you had your foot in the door, he gave people premiums that were unrealistically low, being subsidized by us,
Correct.
okay? Now, the Democrats want to continue it under the guise of, well, people premiums are going to go up. Well, you knew that when you started Obamacare because
Right.
it was done under extreme heavy subsidies that masqueraded the real cost.
Right.
So this
But,
is
but isn't that typical?
no, but this
Yeah.
is the crisis in healthcare we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, you get it in on a temporary, it's going to sunset in 2 years.
Well,
Knowing
this is-
that once you give it to somebody,
you're not going to take it away.
taking it away is going to be a disaster.
Right.
But
and to want it to be part of the CR,
Yeah.
I think is just not
Well,
good government, right?
Who do you blame for the CR?
the
not
fact that it
happening?
hasn't gone.
yeah, but
not
I just
happening.
explained
through,
it. The
me,
Republicans
yeah.
had a clean resolution.
Correct.
Which clean means nothing added. The Democrats wanted to put this in because
Yeah.
they saw that what they'd sown in '08 or whatever year it was when they did Obamacare, which passed by one vote, that this is what happened. And so the real crisis is in all healthcare because everyone's getting catastrophic increases for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest ones is the weight reduction drugs. And a lot of people have gotten,
Yeah,
the
those
state
epics.
health plan, a lot of people have gotten things saying, we are not covering these things anymore.
Correct.
Because the premiums or the cost of coverage of the weight loss drugs, and I can tell you, when I was, Al and I are both mayors of the Heights, and just without mentioning people's names, but I went to the reunion as you did, and there were dozens of people I know who were on those drugs. Are you on one of those?
I'm one. I take Monjaro.
Yeah.
Now, you could look at me and say, it's obvious you
Yeah, but
need
again-
to lose weight. But I'm one of the people that take it because of diabetes.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
exactly.
But what I meant
You take
was,
it for a
what I meant
medical
was generally
reasons, not-
anyway. But again,
Yeah.
whether it's medical or not, the
Yeah.
cost is there, and it was just amazing to see
Yeah.
people I knew and how drastic the change is. But again, it gave the healthcare system a kick.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
Well, I think it was
yeah.
just announced, Lilly and Pfizer are discussing offering these, was it GLP, the ones, the weight loss, that are really diabetic drugs that help with weight loss.
Correct, yeah.
well, yeah, because
Suppresses your
some of them,
hunger.
some of them are also for sleep apnea. People
Yeah,
have sleep
there's
apnea.
other, but
Yeah,
the main
yeah.
reason that people like me are taking it
It's diabetes.
is to control my sugar.
Right.
Yeah, because they found out when they were doing that, when they were giving it for people, they found out inadvertently.
Yeah,
the
it
weight
was like a
loss part.
Viagra thing where they, Pfizer went through
Okay.
and
Yeah.
did a clinical trial as an antiarrhythmic
Yeah.
and found out it
heart-
wasn't helping the heart. And they said, give
It had
back,
other good effects.
give back the leftover drugs. And all the old men said, no.
No.
So
you
it's
know
the same
something was
thing.
going
All of a
on.
sudden, you
Yeah.
put me on it for
Yeah.
diabetes,
diabetes.
sugar control, and I lost 20 pounds.
Exactly.
Now, I'm paying $100 a month for my Manjaro.
Yeah.
If I'm not covered by insurance, it's over $1,000
That's what
a
I'm
month.
saying. So
Correct,
that
yeah.
was the point of
Yeah.
what these healthcare, like the state health plan, which is a mammoth, is 250,000 people.
Yeah.
Mega plan. They basically said no. By the way, hasta
Right,
luego.
yeah. Well, and I think, though, that points to the fact that, a state like Massachusetts, right, we're ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
We have our own state healthcare system.
yeah.
And obviously, there are multiple other states that don't. So even though we're seeing these issues with the government shutdown and premiums going up, it doesn't affect really the Massachusetts residents, right? Because we have our own healthcare. So again, it's that
No, but
separation
but what it
of the
does-
United
but-
States and
yeah,
each
but
state
what-
doing their own thing. So
Yeah,
we're
but what
lucky here, no
it
doubt.
It doesn't affect in a big way is that the cost of our healthcare system
Right.
is now 24 or 25, approaching 30% of the state budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that by nature, if times turn down, you know what's going to happen is all the other plans, just like we talked about school building and stuff earlier,
Right, yeah.
they're going to be over here because the health thing has a life of its own. As Al said, you can't take stuff away. Like
Of course.
Romney Care, which is basically what it started out
Right.
as, because you just don't know. But it just shows you the crises, and you know there's always going to be unrest and social unrest, especially when people something is because as valid as health care. Because I know when my parents worked, the health care was the least of your thing. You're worried about your hourly wage.
Exactly.
Now, for most people, health
Well,
plan is
when
essential.
my father retired from General Motors,
Yeah.
this is 35 years
Yeah.
ago, they gave him a choice of his full pension while he's alive
Yeah,
or 70% of his pension.
and then have survivor.
And my mother was covered till she was
Yeah.
dead. Nobody ever thought, it was, his pension was $350 a month. It was trivial. Nobody ever thought the real cost was that the health care
Exactly.
came along with it.
No,
So
but
for-
they had very privileged because the workers had negotiated pretty damn good health care within their things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my mother was covered for more than
Yeah.
2 decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% by General
100%, yeah.
Motors.
Right.
And the whole cost of things like adding a drug to the list, people don't think about it.
Yeah.
Right. That
Well,
pays $1,000.
I had, for
a dose
example,
type.
when several years ago had a bout with prostate cancer, which luckily is gone, I hope. And so I did radiation, but I also took a hormone. And you see it on television. It's called Nubeqa.
Mm-hmm.
And I was part of a study. Dana-Farber has all these studies. Anyway, the cost of the Nubeqa, if you went to the pharmacy, was $13,300 a month. It was a finished drug made in Germany. Now, part of the Dana-Farber study, it was included.
Mm-hmm.
You would return the pills at the end of each month and all of that. But just imagine someone not under a study
Right.
and not under Medicare, and you say a 50-year-old guy or 40-something-year-old guy, and is arguing with your insurance company, well, this Nubeqa would have the least side effects and consequences for me with my family. And you're arguing with, well, we're not going to pay that silly amount of money.
Yeah, and you
So,
talk about the complexities.
That's just one little
Right.
incident.
You talk about the complexities of
Yeah.
healthcare, right? And now the Democrats want it to be added into the CR.
Yeah.
Again, to me, right?
Yeah, no.
let's pass a CR and let's
Then we'll
talk
talk about
Let's
healthcare
negotiate.
as a completely
just a political
separate
shift for
conversation.
them,
Because why? Because it is so complex. So you can't just kick the can down the road and say, hey, we're going to continue these healthcare premiums as they always have been.
Well, I don't know why you wait till the last minute.
Exactly.
It's politics.
Exactly.
Very
And,
Well-
simple.
and who would have thought someone like Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania would be like a good voice of reason, right? 2 years ago, I sat here and like, yeah, I don't even know if that guy
That's
should
the
be
guy
serving.
with the hoodie and the shorts.
Exactly.
The giant
And-
guy, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And he is
Unmade
like
bed.
he is like the voice of reason for the Democratic Party,
He
right?
loves torture. He is great,
And I
he
think
loves
he's great.
torturing
It's
people.
he's so fun.
Well,
to
when he
listen
came
to.
out and
Yeah.
said he didn't want to hold the American people hostage
Yeah, again,
Correct.
over the
Common
policy.
sense.
Hey, if you again go back, there's plenty of video footage of Chuck Schumer saying we need a clean CR. We
Yeah.
can't
That's-
have it be any other aspects in it.
Yeah.
Let's just pass a
That's
clean
why
CR.
everyone-
So
that's why these clips
again,
are around. So
yeah.
everyone holds everyone in contempt because they know those clowns are sitting there getting paid,
right,
and they're all hypocrites.
exactly.
They come up and do these press conferences or these Senate or House hearings. It's a dog and pony show.
Yep.
I mean, they bring Robert Kennedy Jr. up there, and you're going, "What are you?" I mean,
This
you
is a
have
silly
people
question,
ask the
but
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you justify paying the Senate and the congressmen
Right.
to not do their jobs?
Exactly. Yep.
Well,
You know, I mean,
they're
they're-
literally not working. Whereas you have, the FAA, and our
air
TSA
traffic
and air
controllers.
traffic controllers are all working
And
Not
for,
getting-
for our safety and
Not
not getting
getting
paid. Right? Yeah, it's
Can you imagine
it's
the insanity
absolutely
of that?
ridiculous. And military, right? Let alone military personnel around the world not getting paid.
a disgrace.
So, yeah.
But they will get paid.
Yeah, well, again, but
Yeah.
that.
I mean, again,
Well,
I
it's not
laughed
the
when
impression.
when
It's
Trump
not-
said
that's not the
that's
impression.
not guaranteed.
No,
It's
but-
like, seriously.
Yeah, but that's not the impression. The impression is a country that's malfunctioning with our enemies and with our friends.
Right.
The country is not functioning. It hasn't for a while. The Supreme Court has basically had to step in and been the de facto government because Congress can't do anything. But I think we get it. We're going to go into another topic. What would be our next topic? Because we've really done a lot of.
Yeah.
No, we've done a
Question
lot of.
on tariffs coming up in front of the Supreme Court. But before we go through the legal,
Yeah, but
Are
we
they
want to do
working?
something a little more local. I mean, that's sort of.
no, we can talk about town meeting.
Something like that. I mean, I'm just saying we bring it a little closer. Like we
Town
talked
meeting
about the-
occurred, and the feedback I got is, how come you never disagree at town meeting? It's always funny that we go through 30-some articles. The poll we have at the beginning of the meeting is what article is going to take up most of the time and mean nothing.
Yep.
You remember the chickens. We went through $110 million worth of budget in 20
Chickens,
minutes.
forget.
bus service.
Yeah, but don't forget.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, this is no disrespect to Finance Committee, but the Finance Committee takes the meal, okay,
Mhm.
chews it, prioritize it, and puts it down the table. That's a disagreeable image, but literally, the town meeting members come and they look at the Finance Committee recommendations,
yes.
and they generally trust their recommendations. So the question is, what is there up for debate? Because the way the town meeting is, if you want to discuss the school department, you have to pull that out of the budget, and everyone moans at you because you're going, wait a minute.
Well, that's for the full
No,
budgets,
no,
but
but
not
again-
for.
but again,
But this past
yeah, but-
this past one was for capital,
Yes, I
right?
understand that, but it's the whole impression of the whole
Right.
town meeting.
Sure.
So in other words, when someone wants to examine something, people moan because it's a time consumer, we don't want to be here,
Mm-hmm.
we already know what it is. So you take the first part of the budget where the school department comes in, other things, and they immediately spend 80% of the town's budget
Mm-hmm.
and then argue on other things. But what I meant was, it discourages when like Al said, when people say, my friends always say, when you go to the meeting, all you do is bah, just like that, because you're sheep and you always vote for
They,
But,
they,
you know,
they have a lot of respect.
we
though, I
got
feel
another
for
month.
FinCom.
Yes.
Yeah.
that it's going to be quiet.
Yeah.
Come January, we're going to go to the school committee, and the school committee, it's happened for the 20 years I've been there, we need $1 billion increase.
Well,
We need to hire
Right.
500 new teachers. And the finance committee says, we're broke, we have no money.
Yep.
And then after
Well-
we both pound our chests, we sit there and
Well,
say, now what's
no,
practical?
but the
Work it
consequences
through, yeah.
there are the impact of the ICE on the enrollments. And there are conflicting stories, but I've heard at least 200 down, and probably more when the deportation
Mm-hmm.
hearings happening in November and December. Because what their deportations aren't even hearings, they're deportation.
Okay.
So apparently, I've just heard from, again, people with scuttlebutt, at least 3 or 4 apartments in Milford that have been totally abandoned, nice places. People have just left. They've self-deported.
Do you know the
So-
number this year of kids?
We're getting those numbers tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna
Actually,
say.
so,
But again-
so I'm not sure. I cannot remember.
Yeah.
off
Last
the
year
top
was
of my
like
head.
44, 4,500.
We've been around like the 4,500
Because
mark.
for the
plus
first
or minus.
45
Yeah.
years,
Yeah, but again,
Yeah,
that
it's
I
always
tracked
that
it was
small additions. Yeah.
one net student
yeah,
per
but Al,
year.
we're talking, I'm talking, when I said from teachers who are in the programs, who work with the immigrant families, that the enrollment's down 200 from the beginning of the year, so.
Yeah. It'll be
Period.
interesting to see
So
what,
we'll
those,
find
what
out.
those numbers are.
That could be, especially with the Brazilian summer coming.
No,
Because
but
always
that-
in January, we get
We
a
get-
bump.
No,
We
no,
get a
wait a
bump
minute,
up.
wait a minute, wait a minute. We're not talking about that. We're talking about leaving.
Right.
That have been deported or self-deported. That's what, in other words, the ICE
It's saying that
program has
it's
had
down. So
consequences.
we've gone from
I'm
45
trying to
to
explain to you,
43.
the enrollment is going
So
to
I'm
go
not
down,
sure.
going to go
Yeah.
down considerably, and it'd be interesting to know the real figure
Well,
when we get it.
Our next show
Yeah.
we'll know because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
right about now
Yeah.
that we find out what the
Yeah.
certified number is.
Correct. Exactly.
Because
Well, but
for-
again, the certified number, as you know, certified is certified for a minute because it goes up and down constantly.
It'll
Yeah.
waver
But
a
I'm-
little
I'm-
bit.
I'm- I'm
and
just saying,
obviously our
there'll be consequences
intake
on the
comes
school
up.
budget if the
Yeah.
enrollment's down. That's all I'm
Right.
saying.
Yep.
You can't assume whatever, but, in communities like Framingham and Marlboro and Milford, where there's been serious ICE action, and very intense ICE action, there are consequences that affect the children, affect everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's too bad, but a lot of the kids anyway had not stability anyway. So probably the way the school was one of the stable aspects in their lives.
Exactly.
Because
Certainly.
you talk about the immigrants and the immigrants of the school system. You see a lot of it, Egyptian children who use the library. Their parents are from Egypt.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
they love the library. They can't believe what resource it is. And
Okay.
it's free. It's free to keep it. It's free. Well, in a sense, I said, no. What you have is you have free access to everything. No one's looking at you going, Ed or Chris took out this book or that book. You take out everything with complete anonymity,
Yep.
whatever the books are, and it's a privilege. But you just know that different groups are, and the English is the second language. We have tutorials there all the time. So
Sure.
The one article
yeah,
that took up most of town meeting
Yeah.
was should we appoint or continue to elect the highway surveyor?
well, it's a philosophical issue. I mean,
I'll let you start because you and I differ on this.
well, I'm not gonna. I would say I would leave it as it was because I find the town system of elections and the selectmen are increasingly unresponsive because it was one thing way back. You're not too young to remember, but you are when we actually elected selectmen on a one-year term.
Wow.
And so every year, the whole board was answerable for their things. It was put in as a government reform to put staggered three-year term in. As a result, the elections became relatively unimportant because who's going to defeat an incumbent, and there's two others there anyway. So then you have the type governments like in other places where a town moderator appoints everybody. And the selectmen basically are figureheads. I mean, the person running the thing and that's supposed to be a reform. I don't see it as a reform. I mean, except for the school committee and maybe the library board, everyone else is appointed by the town manager. That's not democracy anymore, and it's reflected in the fact that no one shows up for elections.
Elections,
because
exactly.
they're meaningless. So, to me, I think that especially with a person like the highway surveyor or whatever you want to call him, and it's a visceral effect on the town, that it should have remained the same, or it should have gone to a better solution. It should have gone to the ballot and let the voters decide in a ballot if they wanted to make it, just like they did with the tax collector. They make it a tax collector a job. So I think the town meeting maybe it might have been the preliminary way to do it, but it should have been then put on a ballot to the
But I
town
think
voters.
because of the previous situation where you had somebody who, I liked the guy. Joe was a great guy,
Yeah, but we
very
shouldn't-
personal, but he had no financial background.
No, we're talking about the,
But
highway survey is not financial. It's nothing to do with
No,
that.
but You
you're
could get
comparing-
somebody that is like him, a very personable guy,
Right.
very likable guy who runs for an election, who has no highway experience, no
Right.
road
I
experience.
guess, yeah, Ed, would you run for highway surveyor if the position was open and no one ran, and then you get elected, now what? You have zero,
I
like,
understand that.
knowledge
but
behind
I
that.
understand that, but I
So-
still think it should have gone to the town voters in a ballot to
Right.
say if the town voters, whether it's 3,000 of them, certainly more than the town meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and see if they wanted to do it. No, I wouldn't have voted for it, and I wouldn't have voted for it at the town meeting. I
Right.
couldn't get there for that meeting, but no, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I find it, and I find that the selectmen would do it, I find that lame, let me put it that way.
No, I think though that what we heard at town meeting was how much extra the current highway surveyor is doing, within that job. That's technically not part of that.
Well, why,
that
if he's.
that
then,
policy.
No offense to Mr. Foley, if he's so busy, why is he a parks commissioner, and why is everything else? The point is, do
Yeah.
your job, if it's a full-time job, then that's your job.
Well, I think
Okay, so that's my point.
it's
I
going to
think the
become
worry-
a much
Well,
more of a
that's my
full-time
point,
job
is
too.
That's my point,
Sure.
if it's so busy,
Yeah.
why are you also a parks commissioner? You ran for parks commissioner, that's all I'm saying. So you
Yeah.
don't- we can't
Well,
get into
yeah, but-
personalities in Milford.
But
That's
I
the
think
point.
the only reason I could disagree with you there is, okay, well, I'm on school committee, I'm also on the board for the high school project, and I'm on planning board, so, and I
yeah,
work
but-
full-time, so I can balance out what I have going on. Most of our meetings
Well,
are
perhaps,
after
but
the
fact
workday,
is-
so
the
we're able
fact is
to.
that part of the reason we're on multiple boards, like
Yeah.
you and I, is, no offense to either of us, but a lot of people don't run for them.
Right,
So
yeah.
the candidate pool that you used to have
Yeah.
is not there anymore, because once you're gonna get to a certain generation of people, and you're probably one of the younger members, you don't find it anymore.
Right,
And that's
yeah.
a scary thing, because
So,
it's reflected so much.
With that, though, when you think about it, right, so now you have Scott, and I don't want to age Scott, but I'm assuming Scott's got maybe a shelf life, right? He's been highway surveyor for
Yeah.
as long as I can remember.
Yeah, well,
So at what point then, say, he gets to that retirement age, and now he's done, or doesn't run for reelection, say it didn't go, now all of a sudden you've got this giant candidate pool of say 5 people running,
Yeah.
and they elect someone that, in a
Has
sense,
no
has no
experience.
experience
But that has- that
or
ha-
no
that-
qualifications,
that
right?
has-
You get a
that-
what
that-
happens if you get a Mundani, right?
No, wait a minute. That hasn't happened,
Right.
and it wouldn't. That was the point. To say that would mean, then we shouldn't elect anyone. We shouldn't elect the school committee members, because
Right.
I can argue that there's some people who are elected to the school committee who didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah, but Ed, you got
Well, I
7
get
school
that, yeah.
committee
Well, you
members.
know
Yes,
it.
but
Okay.
a school committee is
We
a
wanted
board of
naming
7.
names.
A school committee is a board of
Well,
7.
wait a
The
minute,
highway
but
surveyor
there
is
could
a
be-
person of
no,
1.
There could be 3 or 4 people on the
Yeah.
committee. I mean, the fact is, these things are personality
I
conflicts.
understand, yeah.
What do you call it? They're, whatever.
I
So-
follow your argument, but
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it's,
So,
to
I
me-
just don't
Yeah.
find, I don't find the arguments were compelling. There was no reason to do it. If the person retired and did it, then I would consider it. But right now, basically, you could go in and do a terrible job and not have any oversight, because the selectmen are not an oversight to you at all, number one, because no one is even oversight to them, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but you're making the point for appointment.
No, I'm
'Cause-
not.
Yeah,
Why?
the highway commissioner, highway surveyor could go in and follow his job description, which is take care of the roads.
Right.
Not help with the transfer station, not help
Well,
with,
wait a minute here. Those are all part of the department, that's the point.
but they're not.
Well, they are.
They are because it's been,
kind of evolved that
Well,
way.
because
Evolved
it's been
to-
cooperative thing with the Board of Health.
yeah,
But the point
Scotty's
is,
been
no, but
taking it over.
the irony is, the overarching thing is that the town, actual town voters are so removed from the reality that no one really cares anymore. Because when you had elections where 7,000 people showed up in an election, I remember there was one in 1992.
I was gonna say back in the 90s
It was
maybe.
90, yes, but the fact is, now you have a board, and you have dreadful local media who don't cover, they
We
don't
have
cover
no
anything.
local media.
Exactly. And, which means no local's dreadful, because no one has an identity of anything. The local paper, you read the obituaries, and you might read a story. I mean, they'll have the Milford football game, and it's a great clap coming out the
But
game,
Ed, what
you never-
local paper are you talking about?
Yeah.
The
I mean,
Free Press, I just saw.
No, we're talking about the Milford Daily News.
Milford Daily News still
Is that
But
still in
Publish- they
existence?
still publish, I mean, I get things published through social media. I can read like maybe
Yeah, but
one
this-
out of every 10 articles, because I don't have a
I
subscription.
gave up
but-
on the Milford Daily News
Yeah.
when I was getting the week and Sunday.
Yeah.
And I went to the local news section, and
wasn't
it was
anything.
all about Natick,
Yes,
in
Franklin.
Framingham,
Right, yeah.
Franklin.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they were bought, if you look at the Milford Daily News and you look at the paper in north of Boston, they have the same logo, just a different name with story. So, but again, so whatever had happened, it happened. I think the net effect on the town is gonna be zilch. I think the more profound effect is gonna be on town are issues like I say, the impact of ice, the impact of the fact that what will happen to the rents in Milford for people, the working class people in Milford, because the apartment shortage had jacked the rents up, and people were pulling all sorts of things where people were subletting and making thousands of dollars. So if there are empty apartments, I know when the Milford Housing Authority, we gave out Section 8 vouchers, you couldn't live in Milford, even though you were a Milford resident on the Section 8 voucher, because the rents were too high. So you had to live in Bellingham, Uxbridge, or Rhode Island. So that may be a good thing, and that it may drive the actual rents down on
In a
apartments.
sense, good or bad, you have, on Deer Street, you have, where Restaurant Depot is, you have the one apartment that's already,
Yeah.
built
40Bs, you mean?
and going, the 40Bs.
yeah.
You have one being built and another one that's
Yeah.
going through the process.
Dave-
And then you have 3 to 4 more 40Bs that
Now, wait
are
a minute,
already
we
going
only
through
have
the
a couple
approvals.
minutes left, but
Sure.
a Milford resident getting a housing voucher
Yes,
to be used in Uxbridge.
yes, of course.
Is that what I heard?
Section 8 can be used anywhere in the country.
Why
A
wouldn't they
Section
get
8
it from
voucher.
where they're gonna live?
A Section 8 voucher from any state can be taken to any other state,
And
period. That's a
Milford
federal
pays-
program,
Oh, it's federal.
federal
okay.
program. But,
Okay.
but again, we're paying for it ultimately. But Dave Consigli, the zoning board, explained the 40B situation through a unfortunate lapse in applying for permits
Oh, I
in the
know,
law, that the 10% threshold, which would,
Correct.
which
Would have been the ceiling.
evade,
Yep.
would you prevent,
40B.
mandatory 40Bs,
Yep.
we may end up with a 13 or 14% because the way the timing are coming in,
Correct.
each of these projects is almost gauged on when we were below 10, so we could end
Right.
up, and now, then you have the whole thing with, especially down by the one they're putting by Stop and Shop if they want to. Imagine the catastrophic traffic down there, which is gonna pour
Exactly.
in and out.
Well, the thing that bothered me about the last one was they're putting in their own water treatment system.
Where was this now? Which one was this?
I can't remember which one it was.
That's
The
interesting.
one by 85,
Okay.
where they went and said it was too expensive to tie into the Milford Sewer Treatment Plant.
Yes.
So they're gonna put their own in. And my question is, in 30 years, when that needs
Yeah.
renovated,
Right.
You know
who's-
what's gonna go.
right, yeah.
they're gonna come right back to the town and say,
I
I don't know if it was a
Never-
treatment, but I think what they did is they told them that your outflow is going to increase so much that the pumps wouldn't be able to handle it.
but
So
again-
therefore, if you're gonna increase the outflow to,
it's
to
gonna
our
cost you.
system, yes, you need to be a part of the solution with upgrading
Yeah,
of the,
But
of
the
the
problem,
pumps.
the problem with this segues into the fact there's no media. So no one, except
Nobody
you're-
knew.
Yeah.
Because you're
Well,
on the planning board.
yeah.
I read the
Well-
social post and you read the stuff and you're on the finance committee, know about it. But the general townspeople have no idea because
Yeah.
this is not discussed.
Good
Well,
and bad.
guys,
it-
I knew this was gonna
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a tough show to get
Yeah.
into 58 minutes.
Here we are.
yeah.
Here we
There
are.
Then I'm,
And we'll get back together in 6 weeks
yeah. We're
and
done, yeah.
continue the same topics.
Yeah.
By then, we'll know school numbers.
Yeah, we
will.
will. Very interesting, yeah. But I know from, just from reliable, not people with an axe to grind or anything, that they were down 200 because of the
And
things.
it wouldn't surprise me that the numbers are
and that
down.
They were
Right.
saying
Yeah.
that.
Wouldn't surprise me, but I'll wait to hear the official
No,
numbers.
let me finish,
Exactly.
and that a lot of the parents were talking about, which I didn't know.
Yep.
Because Lisa explained this to me, that, when they were taken in, your hearing is a deportation. You have an ankle bracelet on.
Mm-hmm.
So so in other words.
I promise you, we'll start on
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
topic,
Yeah.
but we're
Well,
out of time tonight.
No, but just imagine I'm just saying, but we talk about theories here. We talk about theories around us, but just imagine the impact of what this would do on rents, on lives,
Yep.
on whatever, because,
And in the next show, we'll have time to talk
Yeah.
through it.
yeah.
As always,
I think we're
sorry,
out of time anyway.
we're out of time.
Yeah. We were a while ago, yeah.
Thanks to our 6 loyal viewers for listening in. May tomorrow be
Yeah.
a better night than tonight. God bless. and thank you for joining us.